Breaking right now, a civil war at GB News after a Christmas bloodbath that saw Mark Dolan and Isabel Webster sacked and Jacob Rees-Mogg's hours and presumably salary slashed in half. Now, Dolan has been lambasted in his bid to present himself as a victim of cancel culture, given the way he slammed Laurence Fox and attempted to steal my former show within hours of our suspension from the former Free Speech channel because of a joke, remember, which I think that overreaction forever destroyed their free speech reputation. But look, last night I made it clear I didn't want to dance on Dolan's grave, so I thought I gave a very fair and measured response. But today on X, he decided to go to war, writing, "Breaking, Dan Wootton has launched an extraordinary attack on me, describing me as GB News' management's bitch. I'll be responding on YouTube." So I just want to remind Mark exactly how he became the bitch of GB News management, who have now brutally sacked him before Christmas, which, by the way, is just awful. So this was the moment when most viewers lost the respect of Mr. Dolan.
But unless you've been living under a rock or don't have internet access, you'll be aware that GB News presenter Laurence Fox appeared on the channel last night and made some offensive comments about the journalist Ava Evans. Free speech is everything, but it comes with responsibility. Anything you say or write or broadcast will rightly be exposed to the court of public opinion. I know, I've been there, and I'll be there again. Whether Laurence should stay on air is not my decision, and Dan's absence tonight is also beyond my control. There is an investigation ongoing, but the comments made by Laurence, in my view, were sexist, misogynistic, and unusually, in the frenzied climate of the so-called culture wars, have been condemned across the political spectrum, from left and right, and even the Liberal Democrats, wherever they are. GB News has directly apologised to the journalist concerned.
But the hypocrisy was off the scale there, given Dolan himself never even stopped his personal attacks. So remember, I lost my job for smirking at a saucy joke after the watershed, but here he was on Victoria Beckham.
She's a second-rate singer who opened her legs to anyone who wants it, and no damehood Clive, very, very harsh words there, and I'm certain that that's not true of Victoria Beckham, who's very happily married and has been for a long time. Victoria is not a national treasure with you.
As Charlie Sansom wrote at the time, the double standards never cease at GB News. Mark Dolan sent out a very explicit email from a viewer provided to him by producers to then immediately apologise afterwards because the viewer suggested something rather negative about Victoria Beckham. I thought Dan Wootton and Laurence Fox set an editorial precedent about criticisms of women on air. Or perhaps that only applies to presenters the management no longer value. While I certainly do not wish for Dolan to lose his job, I do wonder why he berated the duo last September to effectively do the same thing a la Ava Santina last night. Make up your own minds. And then it got worse, because who could forget Mark Dolan's disgraceful bullying of Catherine, the Princess of Wales, when folk like me were warning very clearly, publicly, to the world. I mean, I remember I appeared on Megyn Kelly's show in the States to say, be careful with what you're saying about Catherine, because I know she is very unwell. This was the coverage that Dolan provided on GB News.
And some are even suggesting that Princess Catherine has an Adam's apple, but I seriously doubt that she is the first trans royal. But if the palace have nothing to hide, they should publish the original photograph, which we're told was taken by William. But I doubt they ever will, which is why this story will now enter conspiratorial folklore forevermore. In the end, there is a lesson for the royal family and for all public figures. Be straight with us. You take a photograph of the family on Mother's Day and you publish it. The very fact that this image has been doctored in any way, even for aesthetic reasons, is a problem for a monarchy that wants to be seen as authentic, real, credible and down to earth. Meanwhile, the questions where is Kate and what's going on with her health will only get louder.
Well, where was she? She was trying to tell her young children that she had been diagnosed with cancer and was about to undergo chemotherapy. And as I say, I never wanted Mark Dolan cancelled for that, but I do think the hypocrisy is off the scale. I do think, though, that perhaps the biggest issue for Mark and so many presenters on GB News is that they don't actually really have their own principles and views, and they will simply do what they are told. As I said yesterday, Mark Dolan became management's bitch, and then management threw him under the bus. Dutifully read the auto cue. That's what he did. Not talk about the Southport Massacre cover-up, or Tommy Robinson, or Katie Hopkins, or anyone else who was deemed banned by management. But the problem for Mark is that his true feelings have been revealed over the past couple of days because the comedian Jonathan Norris tracked down his old tweet. I've checked, it's still available. It was posted by Mark Dolan before the Brexit referendum, where he said, like everyone, I'm a little torn on the referendum, but it's quite clear all the freaks and nutters are for Brexit. Hashtag Farage, hashtag Bojo, hashtag IDS, hashtag Gove. So let me bring in my superstar panel now, Harrison, Pitt, and Lois Perry. And look, this is a difficult one, Harrison, because I had absolutely no desire to turn this into some sort of war of words. I'm just stating what I see to be the truth about the situation. But at the end of the day, this is the risk, isn't it? If you are part of a big corporation where you can be chucked under the bus at any moment and you effectively give up your principles and your morals for them. And that was never something I was prepared to do. I was never prepared to do just what I was told to do in my ear. And at the end of the day, I hope that while I did sometimes make mistakes, my viewers understand that at least you saw the real me.
This is, naturally, I'm on your side, Dan. This is one of the problems with trying to walk a fine tightrope on when you are going to lend credibility to the woke moral universe by drawing from it and criticizing others, perhaps for status, perhaps in order to deflect criticism from yourself. There are all sorts of reasons why people who aren't technically woke sometimes lend credibility to that way of thinking for personal reasons. But once you do that, of course, you land yourself in a position where you can be condemned and where you can be attacked and when you can be ditched for precisely the same reasons. So as far as I'm concerned, this underlines the need for two things. One, for us not to treat our opponents as the legitimate arbiters of moral authority in Britain. Once you've done that, once you sacrifice the language to them, once you sacrifice the moral precepts to them, once you sacrifice everything else to them, they have the upper hand on you, and you're engaging in battle on their terms. And it also underlines the need for outlets like yours, Dan Wootton, Outspoken, outlets like the New Culture Forum, outlets like Lotus Eaters, which can truly value free speech without Ofcom breathing down their neck. So that's what I would say in response to this debacle.
Absolutely. And the thing is, Lois, look, of course, I wish Mark Dolan the best. I actually was the person who perhaps a bit of a folly of mine, but I actually brought him into GB News to begin with. But look, I was just reflecting how the viewers feel about what happened and why I think this new independent world is so critical, Lois, because I can tell you, hand on heart, no one tells me what to say here at all. No one tells me what to say. No one's in my ear telling me not to say that. No one's saying, oh, I have to have a particular political point of view, or I can't talk about this, I can't talk about that. There's no billionaires who are pulling the strings. I believe that's the future of the media. And I just would say to people who are at GB News still, do what you really believe, because it's not worth selling your soul for a corporation that is going to be prepared to throw you under the bus. I mean, I put my life into launching GB News. It actually came at serious cost to my physical and mental health. Not that I'm going all woke on this, but, I cared passionately about making it a success. And then one mistake, or what they considered one mistake, out the door. Brutal. But I learned a big lesson from that. Actually, I don't want to be owned by anyone. I only want to be accountable to my audience. And that is what I love now. I'm only owned by my entire audience. And I find it a beautiful thing. You know how often I talk about the need for free speech to be protected. But I've been increasingly thinking of the need for personal protection from snoopers, bad actors, and hackers online. And I'm delighted to tell you I have found the fail-safe solution. But what's more, this VPN, or virtual private network, to use the full term, is also a life changer when it comes to providing you entertainment and information from anywhere in the world, wherever you are. So let me introduce you to Surfshark, an incredible and easy-to-use service that encrypts all your internet traffic, meaning your online activity stays safe so you can shop, stream, browse, and conduct your banking online in complete privacy. But the benefits of Surfshark go way beyond keeping you safe online. It allows you to access your favorite entertainment and news shows and channels, including, by the way, and this is where it gets really exciting, international streaming services like Hulu, iPlayer, HBO Max, Peacock, or geo-blocked versions of Netflix, Amazon Prime, or Disney+. So within seconds, you can be watching as if you're in another country. If you're traveling for work or on holiday over the Christmas period too, this is a way for you to get all your favorite content from home, including sports, by the way, because you know sports rights overseas can be a big issue to stop you watching. Surfshark is also an insurance policy against creeping censorship in many countries like France, which has now banned Rumble. So effectively, you can watch anything, anytime, anywhere with a click of a button. This is what I describe as true freedom. A VPN can save you money too, because if you shop for deals on websites that change their prices depending on where you're buying them from, you can just change which country you're in. I actually didn't know websites did that until I had Surfshark. There are other benefits too, because you can use Surfshark on unlimited devices, which means your entire household can stay safe with just one subscription. There are over 3,200 servers in over 100 countries. So in reality, a world of choice is at your fingertips with Surfshark. Also, I understand for a lot of you, this may be your first time using a VPN. Don't worry, Surfshark has 24/7 customer service. So go to surfshark.com/outspoken for an extra 4 months of Surfshark at an unbeatable price, or you can just click on the link in the description box below. What's more, Surfshark is so confident that they are the best VPN in the world that you can give it a try for a full 30 days. And if you're not entirely satisfied, you will get your money back. So surfshark.com/outspoken for an extra 4 months of Surfshark at an unbeatable price. Just click on the link in the description box below. But now back to the show.
Well, I mean, you know, I completely get what you're saying. I had a situation at Talk TV where I was told that if I mentioned net zero at all, I wouldn't be allowed to keep my show that I was doing with Andre Walker. That was the woke that was. So we were in a weird situation where he was allowed to mention net zero, and in fact he could have a number of guests on the same shows as me that mentioned net zero, but because Ofcom had specifically mentioned me as a dangerous person, I was sitting there on my topic, unable to mention net zero, and I had to weigh it up. I had to weigh up whether me having a profile generally, which I could then use to bounce onto the other channels to promote what I was doing, talking about net zero madness, nut zero, or not. And in the end,
What
they
did you
threw
do?
me under a bus. Yeah, I sold out. Yeah, and then they dumped me anyway. So, you know, I wish I'd been as brave as you. I really do. But
Well, look,
I
we all
thank
have our moments. I mean, look, I'm not some Mr. Perfect, right? What happened with the Lawrence Fox situation is that I refused to apologize while the show was on air because I didn't like throwing my guests under the bus for their opinions. I'd always made it so clear to the channel, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to be little Mr. Oh, you naughty boy. Naughty Lawrence, or be devil's advocate for the sake of it. It was an adult show after the 9 p.m. watershed. I thought we were all grown-ups to deal with it. But I did do, and I remember speaking to Megyn Kelly about it at the time, and she described it, Dan, it's your hostage video apology. And she did the same thing when NBC were trying to force her outright over a blackface controversy. She did the same thing, did the apology. It wasn't even written by me. I didn't feel it. And I regret that. Of course I regret that. But because at the end of the day, those apologies never save you. They've just got you. But I am proud that on air, when I was on air, I was always myself. I always presented my genuine views, and I never gave into the censorship, because there was a lot of censorship going on. Don't talk about this, don't talk about that. But as I say, I wish Mark Dolan the best of luck. I truly do. But I think everyone in the mainstream media needs to wake up to what is going on.
Well, I'm so happy. I'm so happy to be on your show. I really am, Dan. And I really value your support the other night at the launch of the Heartland UK Europe, at the Heartland Institute for the UK and Europe, because you mentioned Nigel Farage talking about net zero being the next Brexit. Well, you know, I'm not going to blow my own trumpet, but actually I am going to blow my own trumpet. My organisation, Car 26, we were the ones that actually influenced Nigel's policy and reform policy to be the only anti-net zero party in Parliament. And he's acknowledged that as well. In fact, the first time I went on his show in GB News, he basically accused me of being a bit of a nut. I mean, you know, I might be a bit of a nut, but a conspiracy theorist. And I had to sit there and defend. He said, well, why would they be doing it if it wasn't about saving the planet? I mean, obviously, he has to play devil's advocate. And I said, I don't believe this is anything to do with saving the planet, but everything to do with the deindustrialization of the West, globalization, and, you know, basically impoverishing us all for Marxist policies. And he sort of looked at me as if to say, well, okay, good for you that I'd said it. But then when one person stands up, then everybody else stands up. And he's been a big supporter of what I've been doing. And the fact that he's decided to work so closely now with what I'm doing with the Heartland UK and Europe and use net zero as his next Brexit is fantastic. But as I say, the first show I'm doing talking about this is yours, Dan. You know,
boom! I love it, and I'm so delighted to have you here. And Harrison, it is actually interesting, just finally, when we think about Farage and GB News, because they want him off, and I believe that Labour. I was actually told, Harrison, by a senior Labour source, even before they were elected, that the whole reason why they want to change the rules on MPs' second jobs is to get Farage off GB News. And we've seen a very similar thing this week, Harrison, in terms of changing the rules about political donations, simply in order to stop Elon Musk being able to donate to Reform UK. So it's the deep state in action. But I would argue actually the most powerful thing Nigel could do is become an independent media player now, because then he wouldn't be regulated by the off-communists. And I think he would have an absolutely massive channel overnight.
Yes, it's definitely true that people who are Ofcom has yet to be formally, legally, and officially updated to try and catch all of us. And that is to say, all of the people who operate in the kind of digital online media sphere, rather than the typical, the more conventional broadcasting sphere. That's why you have more freedom here, Dan. That's why we have more freedom here at the more freedom at the New Culture Forum, and likewise Farage, if he were to join. If he were to set up, say, his own YouTube channel, well, he's already got a YouTube channel. He's already got a TikTok. What I mean is, if he were to take his Farage show to YouTube in the same way that you have, Dan, that would be a victory. That would be a short-term victory, I suppose, and that it would get him off the hook with, as you call them, the off-communists. But it would only be a matter of time before they updated the rules again.
I know, and we live in fear. We live in fear about that. But look, what I would say, Harrison, is it's going to be much harder for them to regulate the internet. Don't get me wrong. They're trying, right? They are trying hard, but it's much easier for them to regulate a couple of actual linear stations in GB News and Talk TV than it is to come for the internet, where all of a sudden they'd be having to censor you or regulate you. They'd be having to regulate me, but they'd also be having to regulate all of the content that comes in from overseas. So Steve Bannon, Megyn Kelly, Tucker Carlson, it's an impossible job. So good luck if they want to try and do that. but you'd effectively be turning the UK into a censorship state. But look, don't get me wrong, they are going to try. But well, what an absolutely fabulous superstar panel for today. Thank you both so much. Of course,
you.
Harrison Pitt is Senior Editor at the European Conservative, a Fellow at the New Culture Forum, host of the brilliant Deprogram podcast, which I really recommend everyone watches. I've appeared on it before. It is a great show. He hosts alongside Connor Tomlinson. And Lois Perry is, of course, the UK and Europe head of the Heartland Institute. So great to have both of you. Merry Christmas, guys, and please come back in 2025.
Happy Christmas.
Thank you so much for watching Dan Wootton Outspoken. Please click on my face just to the bottom left to subscribe to this brand new independent news source and turn on the notification bell so you'll be alerted to our brand new live shows, uncancelled interviews, and special royal episodes. Outspoken is also now available as a podcast, so you can listen to the show every weekday on the go, wherever you are.